emotional intelligence. It will not have feelings of its own. It will not have consciousness, but it will be able to know that this person is now fearful or this person is now angry with far greater accuracy than any human doctor or teacher or lawyer. Now, just as the authority of the algorithms might come to replace the customer and the worker in the economic sphere, they might also come to replace the authority of the voter in the political sphere. Democracy is ultimately based, as we said earlier, not on human rationality, but rather on human feelings. In elections, voters are not really asked, what do you think? They are asked, how do you feel? And if algorithms can hack human feelings and manipulate and predict human feelings, then democracy is likely to become an emotional puppet show. Politicians, or at least some politicians, are a bit like musicians, and the instrument they play on is the human emotional system. A politician gives a speech, and there is a wave of fear all over the country. A politician tweets, and there is an explosion of hatred. And this fear and hatred, this is the fuel of a lot of political systems. What will happen when these musicians have a much more sophisticated instrument to play on? What might happen is the rise of digital dictatorships. In the 20th century, democracy defeated dictatorship because democracy was better at processing data and making decisions. We tend to think about the conflict between democracy and dictatorship as a conflict between different ethical systems. But it was also a conflict between different methods for processing data. Democracy works as a distributed data processing system. Democracy distributes the information and the power to make decisions between many institutions and organizations and individuals. Dictatorship, on the other hand, is a method for processing data in a centralized way. Dictatorship concentrates all the information and all the power in one place. Now, given 20th century technology, it was simply inefficient to try and concentrate too much information and too much power in one place. It didn't work well. Nobody was able to process the information fast enough and make good decisions. And this is one of the main reasons why, for example, the Western Bloc defeated the Communist Bloc in the Cold War. There is a story that in the last days of communism, in the late 1980s, a Soviet official came to London to try and understand in the capital of Margaret Thatcher, how does a free society and a free market actually function? And the British hosts, they took this Soviet official on a tour of London to visit the banks and the stock exchange and to meet all kinds of economics professors and other luminaries. But after a few hours, the Soviet official exclaimed, "Wait a minute, there is something I don't understand." Back in Moscow, our best minds are working on the problem of how to provide bread to Moscow. And nevertheless, in almost every bakery and grocery store, there is such a long queue for bread. Here in London, a city of millions, we've been going back and forth across the city for hours, and I haven't seen a single bread queue. So please cancel all my other visits and appointments and just take me to meet the person who is in charge of providing bread to London. I must understand his secret. And the British hosts, they scratched their heads and they looked embarrassed and they said, there is nobody. Nobody is in charge of providing bread to London. That's the secret of a free society and a free market. Nobody is in charge. You just allow the information to flow freely between all the different parts, and you allow individuals and organizations to make their own direction. Machine learning and AI might make it possible to process enormous amounts of information centrally. And actually, the more information you gather in one database, the better the process, the better the data processing. And then the main handicap of authoritarian regimes in the 20th century, their attempt to concentrate all information in one place, it could become their main advantage in the 21st century. And this could result in the rise of a completely new kind of regime, very different